Hey guys, I'm the 50s Kid. This is an E90 BMW. It's got a micro leak in the EVAP system. I have diagnosed it. I found the leak. I'm gonna repair it. I'm gonna cover all of that and how you can do your own diagnosis if you have a similar problem. But I also thought I'd take the chance to explain the EVAP system on a BMW as well as the DMTL system and explain how BMW differs from every other car on the road. So let's get started. First, we're gonna cover how an EVAP system works in case you're unfamiliar with that. If you are already familiar with that, I've put chapter markers down below, so just go ahead and skip past this part and continue on with the rest of the video. So I'm not drawing the fuel system just because it's irrelevant as far as EVAP goes. Now, you've got a gas tank sitting in your car and your car's off. Well, if that gas tank was completely sealed from the atmosphere, it would actually expand when it gets hot outside, or it would contract when it gets cold outside, which is not good. So you're gonna need to vent your gas tank into the atmosphere, right? Now, the problem with that is if you just let those fumes escape, then that would be bad for the environment. So we actually wanna capture those in a charcoal canister. Yeah, that's full of activated charcoal, and activated charcoal absorbs a lot of stuff. That's the same kind of stuff they give you in the hospital if you overdose on pills. You swallow it and it absorbs all the poison in your blood, in your stomach. So activated charcoal is good at absorbing things like fuel vapors. So as your car's sitting there evaporating, the gas is evaporating, it gets trapped in the charcoal canister, but eventually that charcoal canister is going to get full. So of course, by the way, we still have to have that vented to the atmosphere, so let's call that the vent. So eventually your charcoal canister is gonna get full and you need a way to recycle those fumes into the engine. So the way you do that is you have a line going to the engine, okay? So that'll recycle the fumes. However, you don't want that line open all the time because look, the vent line's open, so you're just gonna be sucking in air all the time, and that's gonna be a vacuum leak. So you need to have like a solenoid, a switch in between here. This is called the EVAP solenoid. So the EVAP solenoid is going to be closed off when the engine's running, and the engine's only going to open it when it wants to recycle the fumes from the charcoal canister. And when that happens, it knows that it's going to, that's going to be causing an EVAP or a vacuum leak. So it knows to adjust how much fuel is being injected by the fuel injector to compensate for that, so that you don't notice that happening when you're driving along. So that is, that's all well and good, but the thing is, we need to be able to test this whole system for leaks, right? Because over time components fail and a leak could get into the system. So we need a way to test that. And the way you do that is you need to be able to seal this system off, right? So what we're gonna do is put another solenoid down here. We'll call that the vent valve, okay? And of course that also still needs to be vented to the atmosphere. And by the way, there's usually like a little filter on the end of that thing. So when you want to test the system, and this is where BMW differs from all the other cars on the road. Let me just first go over how American and Japanese cars work for the most part. When you want to test the system, you're going to close off the vent valve, right? And then while the engine's running, you're going to open the EVAP solenoid, and that's actually going to, because the engine's producing vacuum, that's going to put the whole system under vacuum, right? So it's going to put the gas tank, and remember, there's also a, the filler cap right here with a little cap on it. That has a gasket on it that has to seal properly. That's why when you get a small leak, everybody tells you to check the gas cap, because that's usually your source of the leak, because you're always taking it on and taking it off and putting it back on, and that gasket wears out, especially because it's in the elements. But it's not always the case. So anyway, it's putting the whole system under vacuum, right? And there's usually going to be like a little gauge right here. I'll call it like that or whatever. It's that's a pressure solenoid, or yeah, it's a pressure solenoid. It's a way for the engine to tell how much pressure or negative pressure this whole system is being put under. And so what it does is it opens the EVAP solenoid. Again, the vent valve is closed. It puts the whole thing under vacuum, and then it closes the EVAP solenoid. And then it measures the pressure and it sees if it can hold vacuum. It does that over like a period of a few minutes. And if it sees that the vacuum is bleeding off, it knows that there's a leak, and bing, you've got the check engine light. That's how it normally works, okay? On a BMW, of course, everything is different. Instead of having the vent valve by itself, and instead of putting the system under vacuum, BMW chose to put the system under pressure. So this happens not when the engine is running, but when you've stopped the car. So when you stop the car, the EVAP solenoid is closed. It's always closed when it's not energized. The vent valve is always open, right? So the car, when it's sitting there, will close the vent valve. It'll keep the EVAP solenoid closed. And it's going to have a little, where should we draw this? Maybe right here. It's called the DMTL. This is really a pump. And what this does, it turns on, it pumps air into the system. And the way BMW figures out if there's a leak, it's not that they have a pressure solenoid to tell the pressure. They actually monitor the current that this pump is drawing. So they know the current that it draws when there is a small leak. They call it a reference leak. It's a 0.5 millimeter sized leak, and they will measure the current that the pump is under when it's pumping air through that leak, that size of a leak, and then it compares that to whatever the current is being drawn when it's under test. And if it's not drawing the same amount of current, it knows that there's a leak. If there's a differential between those two things, it knows there's a leak. So that's basically what's happening. And on the car, this DMTL pump has the vent valve integrated with it. So that's why you might be confused if you're looking around for the vent valve and looking through stuff. You can't find one, or when you do find one, you find that it's underneath, it's in the engine compartment. The thing is, BMW calls what everybody else calls the EVAP solenoid, BMW calls the vent valve. And what everyone else calls the vent valve, they call it the changeover valve. So there's different terminology, but that's basically what's going on here. So with a bidirectional scan tool like INPA or ISTA or a launch or anything like that, you should be able to command the system to perform an EVAP test, to kick the DMTL pump on and whatnot. So you should be able to test with a scan tool whether the pump is working. You should be able to, I'm not sure if you can command the solenoid open or closed. I don't remember looking for that. And I think that you cannot independently close the vent valve. So that all is integrated into the test routine. The pump will kick on and you'll hear the vent valve opening and closing when it tests, when it runs its various tests. All right, so now let's talk about how you would test an EVAP system yourself. Let's say that you ran the DMTL routine and it confirmed that there was a leak, which I did on this car. It confirmed that there was a leak there. So how do you find the leak? How do you figure out where the leak is? Well, you need to have a smoke machine. Unfortunately, it's a little bit of money, but I've got videos on this channel about how to make your own DIY smoke machine. That's possible. It's helpful to have a professional one because the professional ones have a gauge on them to tell you how much airflow there is. And that way, when you hook up your pump or your EVAP smoke machine to the EVAP system, you can turn it on, and if you see that there's airflow, you know for sure there's a leak somewhere. It's just a helpful way to figure that out. But you could also just hook up your homemade smoke machine and put it on and check to see where the smoke is coming out, and you'll figure it out. But the way you do it is you go into the engine and you unplug this line from before the EVAP solenoid. You want access to this side of the system, not this side of the solenoid, right? So this is where you hook up your smoke machine. You just get like a vacuum adapter, or a rubber like adapter, stick it in that line, and this is your smoke machine. Ooh, bad writing. That's your smoke machine. You apply smoke to the whole system. But the thing is, remember the vent valve is open. Whether it's a BMW or any car, the vent valve is always open when the engine's not running. So you need to energize this vent valve and close it in order to place the system, in order to seal the system. That way when you're pumping in your smoke, you can actually see where it's coming out of. Because if this vent valve was open, the smoke would just be coming out of its vent. Ultimately the vent for the whole system. So that's what you do. You close off the vent valve, you connect your smoke machine on this side of the EVAP solenoid and find out where the smoke is leaking from. So let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at how everything looks on this E90 BMW and how to close the vent valve and how to apply smoke and all that stuff. Sorry for the interruption, but we have to thank this week's sponsor, which is OEMBimmerparts.com. I love this website. They've got super fast 2-day shipping. They've got multiple warehouses all over the US so they can get your parts out to you as fast as possible. And I love their website. It's well categorized. There's not a lot of extra stuff. It's just all the most popular parts that you're gonna need, and they're the OEM brands. They do also have some quality aftermarket brands as well if that's what you're looking for. So if you are in the market for BMW parts of any kind, please check out OEMBemmerparts.com. So here is the smoke machine that I was talking about, and you can see it's actually got an airflow gauge right here. It's also got a pressure gauge as well. So that's definitely pretty handy. I'm gonna show you where I have this thing hooked up. Okay, so it's down in here, right down underneath here. This is the actual line, and that line, so this is my adapter. See, with this little rubber tip on it, that kind of plugs down into that line. It's kind of hard to see, but the vent valve is actually underneath here. It's connected to I mean, I wish I could take this out of here, guys, but I really can't. It's a pain in the butt to get out of there, but there you go. See, that's where it's connected right down there. You can see that electrical connector. See this right here is the electrical connector. So this is the purge valve, or what BMW calls the vent valve. Again, very confusing terminology, but this is the purge solenoid. So this line coming out of the side of it, that's what's going into the intake manifold. This line that I've removed right here, that's coming from the gas tank. So, or that's coming from the DMTL pump actually. So that is what you disconnect, and you want to add smoke into that line. So it's super helpful to have that fitting because it kind of just sticks in there and seals off really well. You'll have to figure out a way to do that if you've got your own sort of makeshift setup. All right, I'm going to kick on just the air pump on this thing. You see I've got it turned up full blast. I don't know that we need full blast, but you see how we're not building up any pressure. Remember, it's open right now. The vent valve on the tank is not closed off, so it should be pumping this air into that system, and it's leaking out the vent. So let me show you where that is by turning on the smoke. Make sure that that thing doesn't pop off down there. Yeah, that's good. If we come over here to the right side of the vehicle, this is the rear wheel well on the right side of the car, passenger side in America, and you see the smoke is leaking out of there. That is the vent valve. That's the end of the vent valve, and that's the filter for the whole system. So obviously it's leaking out of there. But the vent valve itself is not actually here. It's over on the other side of the car, integrated with the DMTL pump. Let me show you. So over here on the driver's side of the car, the left side of the car, this is the charcoal canister right there. And that white and black thing is actually the DMTL pump. On the bottom, that's the pump. And on the top, that is the vent valve, or the changeover solenoid, right? So what we have to do right now is we have to energize this solenoid and close it. And the way we do that is we actually need to apply a ground to the pin, because when the car's on, it actually has power all the time, and the engine computer grounds out the solenoid, the switch, and that's what closes it. So you see I've actually got this black wire on there. That's actually back probed into pin number 3 on this connector. The connector is right here. So if you remove the connector, you'll see how, that it's numbered. There's a 1 and a 4, so you'll be able to tell which pins they are. I can't really get you a shot of this because the thing is just in the way, but suffice it to say, I've actually got it connected to pin number 3. Okay, so I have the ignition of the car on so that there's power on pin number 4. I've got this back probed into pin number 3, and we're going to apply ground by connecting it to the body of the car. You heard that click. Hold on, click. So now the vent valve is closed, and we should see smoke stop coming out of the vent on the other side. There you go. No more smoke coming out of there. Still just some fumes basically, but all our smoke has stopped coming out of there. So the smoke now should be coming out of our leak somewhere on the car. And it was actually very hard for me to find it. And I don't think that we're gonna see it now, because I'm gonna show you where the actual leak is and what's happening. The leak is actually here inside the car. It's on the driver's side, and it's hard to see. There's a little crack on the top of that thing. I'm gonna hit it with some soapy water. Hopefully we should be able to see. I don't know if there's enough pressure built up, but I can hear it. It's basically coming out of right here. See that?
can put my finger over it and you can kind of hear it. So yeah, that's where the leak is. The whole housing is just cracked right in there. So we just need to replace this unit and that'll solve the problem. So we have a new part thanks to OEMBimmerParts.com. Showed up. Now this is basically it's a fuel level sensor, you know, because this is a dual lobed gas tank, 2 lobes on either side. And then it's also sort of like a complicated siphon system that helps the fuel pump to maintain the fuel level on both lobes evenly. So as it sucks fuel out of one lobe, it pulls fuel out of this lobe to balance out at the same time. So that's what this module is. Super complicated with all these lines and stuff. I was kind of hoping that I could maybe just disconnect them from this side, you know, and just leave the ones that are in there, but it doesn't look like it. It looks like what we're meant to do is pull it off the other side. So I'm gonna get this all unwrapped and see what I got to do, because I've actually never replaced this one in any BMW before, just the fuel tank or the fuel pump. Looks like we got 2 O-rings that came with it, because of course we're going to have to take the fuel pump out as well in order to disconnect these lines at the other side. So nice that they give you new O-rings, one for here and one for the other one for the fuel pump. So I think my first step is going to be to examine these lines on the fuel pump, you know, on the other side, and see how they connect on, if there's a metal band or something that it needs. I just want to make sure I'm prepared before I dig in. Okay, so this is the fuel pump on the passenger side. Let's unplug these connectors here. And I guess we want to unplug this vent line. Tuck that aside. And then this guy. Basically, I squeezed those like that. Those 2 sides. Now this one, I don't think this line is easy to get out of the way. So we might have to just work around it. I was hoping I could shove it out of the way. Okay, oh well. All right, I've got a brass punch with a brass hammer so that I don't make any sparks. I know people are always a little worried if you're not doing that, so you know, this is nice in theory, but it's not working too well. All right, I just need something more substantial here. And I'm gonna end up cutting this thing off. I've never had one of these be so difficult, actually. All right, just been doing little hits, and I can see it moving. So I don't like this thing. So there's a lot of dirt in this. I'm gonna vacuum it out before well, hold on. Okay, let's see what we got here. Seriously, this line is really in the way. It's really in the way. Interesting. I wonder what they expect you to do. Typically, we haven't had a hard line with a connector on it before. My God, so stupid. Jeez. So stupid. I really want this line gone there. Okay. There's this connector from the other side. Oh, it is a push-in. I get it. It just didn't feel like it wouldn't push in, you know? It's weird. All right, so there's that. Oh, and this kind of came out of the lower module. Ah, okay. I see. Oh, so those lines don't connect to anything. They just connect into some little plastic fingers to kind of hold them down and in. So that's how that works. Okay, and then we have this line which I think clicks down in, and that's, I believe, all we have. So okay, that's pretty straightforward, actually. That's not difficult. Okay, guys, we are now on the left side of the car, and this gray thing, what it is you have to push it this way and then it'll release the black line. At least that's how it is on the new one. Kind of one more example of where this engineer doesn't understand. By the way, that's going to be under pressure. Problem is I've just put a bunch of fuel right there, which I'm not happy about because I did not fully get this thing loose. I was banging on it a little bit. I'm not too worried because this is an aluminum ring, so I'm not really going to be making any sparks. Okay. Suppose it wouldn't be a bad idea to get new rings if you're going to remove them the way that I'm doing it. All right, this guy's free. I think they changed things a little bit. I think that the pump is obviously on this side, but it's pumping the fuel to the other side. So I guess we got to reach in here like this to unplug this line. So just push it in. It's sort of, oh, there we go. I just had to hold it down. I was trying to push it down with my knuckles while I pushed the little black thing in, and that wasn't getting enough leverage that way. So I reached down, held it down with my other hand, and it was fine. So I've disconnected that little connector line to the pump. Basically, here's the new one, right? These two lines are just snapped in somewhere, and then this line, you push in this green thing and pull it off. That's what I did. I'm gonna disconnect those two return lines. There we go. Now we can take that other thing out. So it's just like BMW to make things harder, right? Pretty much follows BMW logic. Makes quite a mess. It's gonna stink up the car. Gonna have to leave the car open, all the windows open for a little while. Okay, these go in and then all the way across. Okay, I think I gotta go across the other side and pull those over, make sure they're getting through the right side. Oh yeah, they're getting hung up, I see. Yeah, you gotta pull them down and sort of guide them. So that's making sense. Okay. Now let's shove this in. Let's get it down in there like that. And then get the level sensor in. Push that in. Yeah. And I guess figure out where this wants to go. Let's get this green O-ring out because we're going to change it. Okay, here we go. Put that on. All right, I think I'm just going to put this here for now. I got to go to the other side. This goes down and on. No, see what you got to do is put it on, but then try to pull it off. Make sure that it's like clicked down on tight. There we go. Heard the click. Can't pull it off. Now we have these lines which snap in. A black line which kind of got lost a little. All right, that's it. I'm gonna get this back where it's supposed to be. Now remember, there's another little line that connects up to this right here, and it's down in here, right there. right. Got to change that O-ring. Okay, this little tab, it goes into a little area. I gotta make sure that this line can come out of here. Remember, I tucked this out of the way. Yeah, okay. So you don't want to put that on yet. You gotta get this in. I will finish hammering it closed later. Now I can finish up this. I can see where the little thing is. It goes there. There we go. So like I said, I will bang these shut, but that's pretty much it. All right, I'm not gonna lie, that was an unpleasant experience. Let me reconnect this. I'm sorry, I know you can't see anything. Just wanted to reconnect the tank vent valve. So I am seeing that the flow is dropping and the pressure is going up a little bit as this tank fills with pressure. Yep, flow's dropping even more, pressure's going up. I'm convinced at this point, guys. I think we're good. Let's let the smoke out. Let the vent solenoid open. Cool, man. All right, I'm just gonna button everything back up, you know, put everything back the way it was. I think we're good to go. And, you know, I think we'll run the tank leak diagnosis thing in input or ISTA just to make sure. So I just ran a check in ISTA and there are no more leaks found. So we're good. That was a really annoying part to change. Like, they could have made that a little easier. They could have made it so you disconnect those hoses on either side. That way we didn't have to fish them out and put new ones in, but that's BMW for you. Anyway, if you are interested in an EVAP machine like I have, I will put some links in the description. There are some really affordable ones actually, so check that out. Remember to check out OEM Bimmer Parts if you're in the neighborhood for parts, and stay tuned for the next one. I'm the 50s Kid. Thanks a lot for watching.